Starting a new fantasy romance series requires a serious commitment. You are putting down $15 to $20 per book and carving out upwards of 15 hours of time just to get through a single installment. Right now, a massive portion of readers are making that investment specifically to find the villain gets the burl trope. They are actively hunting for a darker, sharper, and more dangerous reading experience. The problem is that the publishing industry and BookTok communities have turned the word villain into an umbrella marketing label. It is pasted onto so many different types of stories, it has lost all objective meaning. You will see that exact same word used to describe a grumpy fairy who had a tough childhood and a literal, unapologetic, and mass-murdering demon. Buying a book based purely on the villain tag is a complete gamble. You have no way of knowing what kind of story you are actually getting, and it frequently leads to wasted time and money. This creates a severe expectation mismatch that usually hits right in the middle of mainstream romantasy. This graphic shows the bait and switch. Publishers sell a checklist. He uses dark magic, acts cruel, and has a dark aesthetic. Then the plot reality. He secretly donates to charity, only wanted to protect the heroine, and saves the world. This specific mismatch creates two opposing risks. It traps dark romance fans in a predictable redemption arc they didn't ask for, or it traumatizes mainstream readers by exposing them to an unrepentant psychological thriller they aren't prepared to read. To eliminate that friction, we have to discard the marketing hype entirely. We need a way to map the exact spectrum of villain literature. The solution is to evaluate antagonists based on their actual in-text behavior, rather than the aesthetic they wear on the cover. This is the villainy quadrant chart, an objective tool to calibrate your book purchases. The horizontal x-axis measures danger to the world, from lawful hero to chaotic destroyer. The vertical y-axis measures treatment of the heroine, from a soft protector up to an active threat. Plotting a character against these two axes is the only reliable way to predict a book's true psychological subgenre. Tier 1 is the misunderstood hero. This archetype drives the vast majority of the marketing bait and switch in mainstream publishing. When we plot this tier, the male lead ultimately lands firmly in the heroic and soft protective categories. The defining anchors for this tier are characters like Rysand from A Court of Thorns and Roses and Xaden from Fourth Wing. Investing your time in this tier guarantees you get the brooding aesthetic of a bad boy while ensuring the emotional safety and pacing of a classic romance novel. The trade-off is simple. You receive emotional safety, but sacrifice high-stakes narrative tension. Their villainy is a temporary facade masking a guaranteed redemption arc. Tier 2 is the morally gray protector, heavily defined by the touch her and die trope. Here, the male lead harbors genuine hatred for the world, but maintains absolute devotion to the female lead. On the chart, this plots on the right as a destroyer to the world, but stays low on the y-axis because he remains fiercely protective of the heroine. Examples include Aaron Warner from Shatter Me and Carden from The Cruel Prince. This tier delivers high interpersonal tension and highly satisfying, unapologetic violence, but that violence is strictly directed at outside forces. Because the conflict is entirely externalized away from the female lead, the core romantic relationship lacks true antagonistic danger after the first act. Finally, Tier 3, the true antagonist. This is pure dark romance, where the male lead commits severe misdeeds and retains his villainy to the very end. This is the only category that scores high as a destroyer of the world, while also acting as a direct active danger to the heroine. The anchors for this extreme end of the spectrum include Lothair by Cresley Cole and The Unseelie Prince by Catherine Ann Kingsley. Reading this tier yields genuine psychological friction, incredibly complex power dynamics, and an active antagonist who actively refuses to be redeemed or softened. To access this authentic antagonism, you have to tolerate heavy trigger warnings and completely abandon traditional moral resolutions. Now we can move from theory to practice. You need a diagnostic tool to cut through the BookTok marketing hype before you buy your next series. This flowchart is the Find Your Villain decision tree, and it tests your specific tolerance for narrative edge. The first logic gate is simple. Does the male lead need to save the world? If your answer is yes, you are immediately routed to Tier 1. If your answer is no, you hit the second logic gate. Can he be an active threat to the female lead? A no routes you to Tier 2. A yes routes you straight to Tier 3. Utilizing this simple logic tree ensures that your personal emotional bandwidth perfectly matches the literary subgenre you are about to purchase. If you land in Tier 1, you are looking for a cozy escape. You want the illusion of danger wrapped in the guarantee of a happy, heroic ending. If you land in Tier 2, you want political intrigue, mafia aesthetics, and a partner who will gladly burn the rest of the world to the ground just to keep you safe. If you are frustrated by those redemption arcs and want an unapologetic bad guy from page 1, you belong in Tier 3. You must cross the line into dark romance. Be aware that finding true Tier 3 antagonists requires you to step completely outside of the mainstream bestseller lists to find authors writing for that specific niche. Stop letting BookTok algorithms dictate your genre boundaries. The marketing labels are broken. By objectively defining what villain means to you personally, you can bypass the bait and switch and finally invest your reading time and money with